Hello and welcome to the Goon and Talk. Back in with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, of course, show in which we react to the latest Arsenal news, views, matches, latest transfers, everything, and obviously get your thoughts in our live chat. Of course, it's always a massive pleasure to have all of you in that chat watching every single episode, and the feedback over the last couple of weeks has, as always, been really, really positive, so thank you for that. Of course, we've done a couple of episodes over our international break, which I do implore you to go and check out. We did our podcast with Mike and John, which is a really good, bit of a laugh, that one, but it was really, really good to go and do, and a good chat with the boys. So please, if you haven't already, go and check that out. But you're here to discuss today what is ahead of the return of domestic football, thank God, after what has been what feels like the longest international break in living memory. It has been an absolute drag needing to get from that game against Spurs to this game against Watford. And whilst the game against Spurs, I definitely think left a lot of people slightly disappointed because we couldn't come away with all 3 points. What I do think is that it left us in a place where we weren't too downbeaten if we had have lost that game. We came back from 2-0 down and got that point, and I think that's going to set us up really well for a couple of games where we really should be picking up maximum points at every opportunity feasibly possible. Let's say hello to people in the chat that are here already. We got Squad Kyorsam, we've got hello from Las Vegas. Well, thank you for tuning in. Hovik, Cole Halberg, long time listener. Thank you for tuning in, mate. And HS157 is also in the chat as well. So thank you ever so much to the people that are tuning in already. We'll catch up with some of those comments in just a second, but we're going to jump right in and look at the latest Arsenal team news, which you can see on your screen now. So Holding, Bellerin and Tierney were asked about, and we've got updates on all of them, plus Mavropanos stuff. We look at Rob Holding, which is obviously the first one to think about. The great news, and we knew this, was that he would be coming back after the international break, and he will be in full team training. I don't think we'll see him in the squad. I'd be very surprised if we do. Against Watford, but he has been playing a fair few games for the under-23, so maybe we will see him in that squad. I can't wait to see him starting very, very soon. He is, for me, one of our starting 2 centre-backs and has shown that last season. To think the last time we saw him was against Manchester United, all those months and months ago when he'd done that awful injury to his knee is such a long time, but now he's back and hopefully going to be on form to really turn in some performances for the Arsenal, and that's sort of going to impact on how I choose my lineup in a little bit. Of course, we carry on talk about Hector Bellerin and Kieran Tierney and Mavropanos. They're all at the same sort of stage. They're looking to get back into full training this month, which is fantastic news. Of course, we originally thought they'd be back in October, but now it seems that they'll be back much, much sooner than that. And we could even see them feature at the start of next month, which would be absolutely brilliant. And I can't wait to see that happen. So I'm sure that plenty of people can't wait to see Bellerin and, of course, Tierney starting as right and left back for the team, because we know that's going to transform things for us moving forward. Let's see what some of you guys are saying about that big news then. Ashwin, hello from New Zealand. Thank you for tuning in, mate. Yoni, hey as well. Arsenal Nation are in here. Peace Tembo says Holding is back in full training. He's seemingly very happy about that. Ojakor says that he's back again with Holding, and Arsenal Nation said Rob Holding is back. Alan Lethbridge, Louise and Holding as a possible starting pair going into the weekend. Maybe. We'll have a chat about that in a second. Richard Beaton says, great content, Tom. Started in the summer and watched most of the stuff you've done since. I normally can't watch the chats live, but I'm off sick from work. Get well soon, mate. I've had to recover from a bit of an illness, but we're back stronger, as always. Holding and Louise, for me, says Jacor. I think that it's something that we're going to see very soon. I'm not sure we'll see it at the weekend, but it's certainly something that we will see very, very soon. Right, let's start talking about then. That's the latest team news. And obviously, with Emery's press conference tomorrow, we should get a little bit more about that. But let's get a little bit more information about who actually we might see in this line. So we're going to our classic website of using our lineup builder, as we like to use on the channel, and we're going to discuss who we think should be starting these games. So, of course, in goal, I think we know that Leno is going to be our goalkeeper. That's fairly certain. Into the Europa League games, it's going to be Leno. I can't wait to see Emi Martinez play, because I think he's actually come on and developed quite a bit, but we know that Leno is going to be starting. Right and left back, Maitland-Niles, we know that, or if we can spell his name right, Maitland-Niles, and of course Kolasinac starting in those positions until Bellerin and Tierney are back from injury. That is most likely what it's going to be. It's going to be those two. We know that. That's the deal. I quite like both of them. I think they offer a lot going forwards. It's just the defensive side of the game where specifically Kolasinac lets us down in that area. Now, it's the back two where decisions have to be made. Now, the person that I'm keeping in my lineup is David Luiz. Again, if I can spell his name right with my fat fingers. But David Luiz, I think, has definitely shown his quality so far this season. Yes, he had a bit of a brain fart against Liverpool with the penalty, and I don't actually blame him too much for the third goal against Salah. There was an issue in the Spurs game in which obviously he pushed up, but that was because of actions of other players on the pitch. I think he's been commanding. I think his passing has been very good, and I think he's added something a little bit different to the back line. And the actual player that I would start next to him in this game against Watford is Callum Chambers. Socrates, for me, has made a couple of errors in these games that have been too high profile. And I think it's actually time to possibly consider getting Chambers into that starting lineup. A lot of people in the future would like to see Callum Chambers and Rob Holding being an English pairing, those two in the lineup moving forward to sort of the future. We want to see defensive reinforcements brought in, but I like the idea of having a full English back line in there. Having Chambers and Holding there, I think, is something good to look for the future. Chambers against Newcastle was brilliant. No one can take that away from him. And the only person that did take that away from him was Unai Emery when he decided to drop him to bring David Luiz in against Burnley. I think Chambers has shown that he is a really, really good and disciplined centre-back and has shown that he can play in multiple positions on the field. And I personally would go with Chambers. I'm not, and this is obviously the assumption that Holding is not yet ready, even though he's back in full training. I think he could be on the bench, but I don't think he's quite yet ready to come straight back into the first team. And so I'm going with Chambers. Let's see what you guys say about who would you start in that back four. I'm interested to know who you'd start at the back. I think it's certainly something that divides opinion. Socrates is liked by a lot of people for his leadership and, of course, for his tenacity. Let's see what some of you guys are saying. South London's Finest B says, we'll only be happy when our fullbacks are back. Squad Clawsome says, Holding is good news. So are your vids, mate. Thank you ever so much. Jamie Phoenix says, great show, Tom. Squeezed in some minutes from my break. Canadian Gooners, thank you for tuning in. Hovik says, do you think that Emery will switch to a back three until Tierney and Bellerin come back? I think it's certainly something that he's going to consider. I'm not sure if it's going to be something he's going to use against Watford, but I think the back three is something that we will see come back again. Stuff going on about the midfield. We will discuss the midfield in a little bit. Chris Giwa says, what about Chambers in the defensive midfield role since Torreira and Xhaka are supposedly injured? I think that there's a possibility that we could see Chambers there in the future. I'm not sure if we'll see him in that game. I think Torreira will come back okay. I don't think the knock is too bad. If that is the case, then it's an option. It's certainly someone that we can play there. But we do have Guendouzi and Willock who can play in deeper midfield roles, not as out-and-out defensive midfielders, but with Xhaka and possibly Torreira out maybe. I think Xhaka's still going to be fit, personally. I think he's still going to play. There's an argument about his incoming child as well, which could put him out, but I'm not sure it's going to be for the Watford game. We will know more tomorrow at the press conference, and of course, we will do a breakdown of that press conference for you and get you all that latest information. Back three says Patrick, a possibility, maybe say Solo, says Luiz in the defensive midfield role. Wow, Drizzy says that I'm incredible. That's high praise, mate. I appreciate it. Alan Lethbridge says that hope that Xhaka has a month off. It's harsh, but I think that a lot of people can get behind the idea of seeing Xhaka play less minutes at the moment. Brandon's asking, is AMN turning into a quality right back? I'm not quite sure yet. Defensive side of his game needs to improve, but going forward, he's definitely improving every single game. Sola reckons that we should try Chambers at defensive midfield and see what he can do. Let's continue then into the midfield as we talk about it. I'm going to go off the assumption that Torreira is going to be available. I think that basically he got injured in the Uruguay game, but it was only a very, very light thing. He came off. I'm not sure if he's featured in the other game for Uruguay. I imagine he probably hasn't. But what I'm going to say about it is that I think he comes back into the team if they deem him fit enough. I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow, but I'm going to go off the assumption that he is fit. And I personally would be playing Torreira next to the man that is fully in form, and that is, of course, Matteo Guendouzi. Matteo Guendouzi is a fantastic, bright spark of our season. I think that when we're going to see him pushing forward. He's going to be spraying those balls out wide to the flanks, pushing out wide each side, and I think he's going to be that guy that is the real sort of, not playmaker necessarily, but a deep line passer that actually drives the ball forward at times and really fights between the lines. Something that Jack Wilshere really used to do for us in the past. And of course, the person I'm playing in front of them is Dani Ceballos. Dani Ceballos, if you hadn't seen, had an absolutely fantastic game for Spain. The ball that he played in behind to get, I think it was Alcacer's goal, was really, really fantastic. And if you haven't checked it out, you really, really should. But for me, Ceballos is the informed guy. He came on against Spurs, changed the game. And whilst he can play in a number 10 role or a number 8 role, I think that we should see him slightly advanced ahead of those two in midfield. Maybe we'll see a midfield that actually sees Guendouzi push right. Ceballos obviously likes to drift left with Torreira dropping in behind. But whatever happens, I think we're going to see those three. Ceballos loves to push forward, but he loves to sort of drift out to the the left-hand side, and we will see him move that because he likes to play the ball out to that left wing. And then it comes to the front three, and I think this is arguably the easiest part of the pitch to sort of talk about with Pepe, Lacazette, and of course Aubameyang playing in that front row. We know that all of them were not involved in international football, which for us is a massive positive. We have to take as a positive because them not playing means that they will recover from that sort of 4-game stint in the Premier League much, much quicker. Pepe came back from the international break to sort of work on his fitness early, which is great. And Lacazette was, of course, snubbed rather harshly by Didier Deschamps. So I think that's the team that we will go for. I hope it is. Is it the team I think we'll go for? I think Socrates will probably start. I also think that we'll see Maitland-Niles and Kolasinac there. I think the midfield should be that 3. If Xhaka is fit, then Xhaka could probably start, in which case we might see Torreira off, Xhaka in with next to Guendouzi with Ceballos ahead of them. But I think that's what we're going to go for if it was my decision. But in terms of if it's Emery's decision, I think you could see a change with Torreira and Xhaka. You could see a change with Chambers and Socrates. But we're just going to have to wait and see. Let's see what some of you guys are saying in the chat box. We've got Yoni. He says there that Guendouzi, Torreira and Ceballos in midfield. Hope Ozil is back in the team considering Lacazette's injuries. Ozil is another one. Of course, I think he'll be on the bench again. I want to see him come back in. I want to see him do well. I think that he hasn't really been able to show it this season because he's not played. But in pre-season, he looked really, really good. And just because of this psychological impact of the of sort of the thing that went down at his house and the mugging and all that. And I know that Kolasinac just played, but we know that Ozil's mental fragility is there to be seen for all, and maybe it affected him more. There was a chance that he was maybe ill as well. But I would really like to see him come back in and have a chance. But I don't want to see him start. I think he needs to gradually be bedded in. And I know that's going to divide opinion. A lot of people don't like to see him play. But I would just like to see what we would do with him in the team. Sharma says that he hopes Pepe will score this time. I think Pepe desperately needs a goal. And we know that moving forwards that Pepe has to get a goal to boost his confidence and just get him off the mark and get people off his back that are going to be criticising. Solo reckons Torreira ain't playing. Willock, Guendouzi and Ceballos will be our midfield 3. The only issue I have with that is that you've got Willock and Ceballos, who are obviously more offensive-minded players. Guendouzi is a more passive midfielder that likes to pass the ball about and drive the ball forward a bit before laying off a pass. But you haven't really got anyone that's going to sit. You haven't got anyone that's really going to cover that back 4. So those 3, I think it leaves against Watford, which whilst they aren't doing too great this season, I think certainly could leave you a little bit exposed against the pace of likes of De La Feo. And obviously the danger that annoyingly Troy Deeney can present with us. Dark Zero says, which Arsenal youngsters do you think would make it at Arsenal? I would say Guendouzi and Martinelli. I think they will. I think Willock has a great chance. I think that Nelson's got a struggle to get into that front line. But you never know. With Aubameyang, wrong side of 30, couple more seasons maybe at the club at the top of his game before he thinks about maybe moving on. Horrible to think about Aubameyang moving on, but he is the wrong side of 30. He is going to start declining. It's just natural in footballers at that age, and you have to be real about that. Maybe Nelson will get more of a chance, but we'll just have to wait and see. Will he wait for that chance? I have concerns about that, but we'll just have to wait and see. Carl Williams says, can this front 3 work with no player that can play as an actual midfielder? Interesting. I'm not sure quite what you mean about that. With none of the players that can play as an actual midfielder, I don't know if you mean about the connection between the midfield and the attack, Carl. If you do, I think it's definitely important that we add a little bit more creativity from the front line and the midfield that we saw in the North London derby with Torreira, Guendouzi in there, with Xhaka as well, was too passive. There wasn't enough of a connection between that front line and the attack, the front line and the midfield, and that meant we lost a lot of the creativity. Glenn Cook says that he just wants to see better decision-making from Pepe, and that will lead to more goals and assists from him. Decision-making is going to come. It takes time to sort of bed in and know what you need to do. We know his take-on ability is great. We know he can take on players and get past them, and we've needed someone that can drive the ball forwards for a long, long time, and he is that player. I think we need to let him bed in. I think we need to let him do what he can do, and goals will come. And I'm very, very confident of that. Alan says that Willock, one of the best players so far, and then gets dropped. Unai is Wenger in disguise. I'm not sure I'd go that far, but I think that Willock was dropped for the right reasons. I think that we needed to play a little bit more astute in the games that we've played so far. He has been impressive. But you don't want to do what we saw with Iwobi. We don't want to do what we saw with Bellerin when he first got into the team. Too much pressure, too soon, too much of the spotlight can have an impact on the players really, really positively, but also can be slightly detrimental. We want to take that into effect. And I think protecting Willock at the right times, I think, is a very, very good piece of management. Solo says that Arsenal should go into January and buy a DM. I agree with him. We talked about that on the podcast. Dart Zero says that we need a DM that's going to be physical and tall. Do you think someone like Doucouré would work at Arsenal? We need players like him who can carry the ball and physical. I do. I like Doucouré a lot. Whether or not I think he can be the out-and-out defensive midfielder, as you say, he likes to move forward. He's sort of a deep-line midfielder still. We've got those. I like Doucouré. I like his physicality, but I don't want to buy someone to replace Torreira. I want to buy someone who can play with Torreira as more of a destroyer of physicality, who can recover the ball well, intercept passes, read the game. I don't want to use Sergio Busquets as an example because it's just too far-fetched, but someone in that ilk who's tall, who knows what he's doing, who's clever and wins the ball that well and also muscles people off the ball well. And we need someone like that. And that was Kondogbia for Valencia for a long, long time. And he was excellent at that role. But I think that ship has sailed and we need to bring someone in. Some people suggested Sangara, the young guy in Liga. Maybe he's someone that we could look at. But I think that it's certainly someone that we need to target moving forwards in the window. But focusing on Sunday, I think that we've got an interesting lineup that we can field. I think that we're going to see some really interesting lineups be put into the team, and we're just going to have to wait and see. Ahmad says that will Rob Holding start against Watford? We talked about that right at the beginning. I doubt that he will start. There's a possibility he could be in the squad, but it'd be a bit strange for him to come straight in and start that game. But we're just going to have to wait and see. In terms of what comes next for the rest of the week, I've got a couple of things planned. Of course, tomorrow, I believe, if I'm not wrong, the press conference with Unai Emery is then, and we always do a breakdown of that. So please tune in tomorrow. Hit that notification button so you get told when that show will drop, and we will be breaking down the press conference, no problem whatsoever. And also there'll be an Eyes of the Opposition show. You know, if you've been tuning into the show for a long time, I have a little bit of a Q&A session with a journalist or writer or fan or personality from the other team, and we sit down and have a discussion. And I've got a really, really good one for the Watford game, so I'm not going to let you know who that is. I'm going to give you a bit of a tease about that. But please make sure you're subscribed and turn those notifications on to know when that drops. But there will be an Eyes of the Opposition show with a Q&A, getting the other side of things, getting the Watford perspective ahead of the big match. But it's going to be really, really interesting. If you've enjoyed the show, please give it a like. Please, of course, subscribe if you're new around here with those notifications turned on. And then that way you'll never miss a show. But it's been a real pleasure talking to you as always. Thank you ever so much, all the people in our live chat. If you want to get involved with those, you have to hit the notifications to get told when these go live. Or follow us on Twitter because I always tweet it out as well. But I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.